This whole thing started off a long time ago when I was a kid. My dad, ever since I can remember, had a bike. And, I think the first ride I had was on your 64 Panhead.
Yeah, I had a 64 Panhead back in 77, 76, yeah.
Those are some of my first memories watching he was an iron worker at the time, I believe. And he would come home and he'd always roll up to the front of our court over from Silver Spring, and he'd roll in and there's pictures of me and my mom and my sisters on those bikes. It was awesome, man. Those are good times, and that's like the first memories I have of motorcycles.
Yeah, I used to put him on the tank and take him around when he was a kid. And I had this old lady neighbor call up the cops and shit in there. My mission is to pass this on to him, and he's passing it on to my grandson, which is his son. And I'm glad to see it that we're passing it to the younger people, because that's what you need now, because sooner or later somebody's got to take the reins and keep going what we've done and accomplish.
This is my 46 Knucklehead. I've had this longer than pretty much any bike in here. I got this one in 2003. It's kind of a tragedy how I got it. I had traded a Fat Boy for a 1937 ULH that was all original in Davenport, and I did that a title for title deal for that one. And I had it for, I don't know, 8 months, and then I sold it, and then bought this bike. Had the motor rebuilt, and just pieced it together and got all the right parts for it. I've changed it up a few times here and there. I used to have it pretty much more stock than it is now. Willie G signed my fucking gas tank in 2013 and told me it was worth 10% more. So, thank you, Willie G.
Any and everybody that comes to the city, regardless if they're from the South or California or even the East Coast, you know, they all trip out about how right in the city here, like our cops will stop traffic for a whole line of bikes. Nobody messes with bikers down here, and it's apparently not like that everywhere else you go. So in the summertime, we used to do this party called the Hood Bush, and it was a good time. It was a pretty legendary party. And the first year we did it, we had to have had, I don't know, 60, 70 bikes there, maybe even more than that, just jamming through the city of Milwaukee. And we did not look like, you know, a bunch of guys on a bagger, you know, going to do a toy run. And the cops would stop traffic and let you drive, you know, they didn't give a shit. And I got buddies from Georgia that are like, that's fucking insane. Cops by us look for reasons to pull you over if you're on a bike. In Milwaukee, they don't give two fucks. And I'm just like, I don't know any different.
I remember after one of the Hood Bushes, like a dozen of the dudes split off and came to our house. Yeah, you guys partied in Tally Ho.
Make some road! Make some road! Follow that! Follow that! Follow that!
I think it was the last one we did. It was at a bar called the Tally Ho, this little town in Erin, and there's a shitload of people out there. And there happened to be this little cemetery next to the bar, and of course you get a bunch of degens together to throw a biker party, and you know, people are going to do weird shit. So towards the end of the night, when the bar was shutting down, is when the real party always gets going. And there was like bodies and people passed out all over the place in this graveyard. And this little town of Erin, and the folks up in Erin, you know, they get excited if a air balloon flies overhead.
You guys were in the newspaper about how rowdy you guys were.
Yeah, I think they still have somebody had it up at our old shop. It was like some shit out of, I don't know, Time magazine, you know, dirty biker group takes over town for the night or some shit.
I had to dismantle a 1940 chopper to get to this frame. This is an OEM frame, uncut, untouched. So what I did is I dismantled the bike to make this bike, and the motor is all OEM. It's you know, matching belly case. And I said, you know, you got to have something that represents the era with a bobber. We were done with it. We took it for a ride, and there was a filming crew. There was some people coming over to film. Who was that? Ken Carvajal was coming over. Yeah. So I kind of rushed putting these tanks on, and they looked pretty good. I just dusted them off and threw them on. The bike was running tops, and then we started moving. All that rattling and running loosened up everything, and I started stalling. Damn near broke my leg trying to get it started. He was saying it was a fuel problem all the time. We always go back and forth and argue with one another. And that's how we get things done. We get things done like that. And he goes, come on, old man, I know it is. So he takes off the valve and he shows me a Coke bottle, black, from all the gas. So he was right. I'll give him that.
Get the fuck out of here, really? That's the first time in my life. I'm glad we got it on.
I gotta do it on camera. I gotta do it on camera. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but yeah.
Thank you. You're too generous.
I had Mike Davenport, who is a damn good tattoo artist. He drew this. There was a big dent in it. It looked like somebody put Bondo, and it looked like a double. So I told Mike to do a little graphic of a double there. I think he did an excellent job on it. And I wanted one of those doubles from back in the day. It's a 74, it's not an EL. It's a FL, and it's all 47. If you see the plate, 1947 plate, you acquire all these things. This is an OEM from way back in the day. I'm originally from South America, from Peru, and I had a family member that used to do that for the tourists. He'd make brass. And that's a sacrificial knife, and it's also a good luck charm. So he had it on his bike, on his knuckle, so I stole it one day.
The fucker's good at it.
And I said it would look good on mine, and I put all the jewels on there. I had this gal at work when I was technically put all the jewels on there. And I decided to put it up in front there, and it looks better on my bike than it did on his, so it's gonna stay.
No shit. It always looks better on your bike.
Some of these parts here are Carlos's parts. We always share.
I like that word, share. You notice that? You fucking see that?
How we find out is all of a sudden you look at this shit's mine.
I have a 49 pan frame, and it's sitting there, and he's telling me how he's gonna build this 40 knuckle, and I'm like, sweet, what are you gonna use? He's like, oh, that frame. And I was like, I just bought that fucking thing. He goes, it's not yours anymore. What the fuck is this shit, dude? You just come over and jack my shit? He's like, yeah, it's mine. He used to take me to bike shows in the early 80s. They looked a lot different than they do now. There's a lot of S&M shit and ball gags and weird shit like that. It was a whole different scene. They used to do, what did they used to do? The
Honda
robots?
drop.
Yeah, the Honda drop.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys ever seen that shit, but they'd have a robot that like fucking transform, and then they'd drop Hondas 150 feet up in the air, and then they always have these drunk fuckers. There's always like the skinniest guy in the crowd. They'd give him an 8-pound jackhammer to go beat a pile of Hondas up. And I remember seeing he'd go, this guy'd go back to swing the fucking hammer, and he'd go flying backwards, and the whole crowd would cheer.
In those days, you could go to a swamp meet, bike like this, like that. Nobody wanted them. You could buy that for $400. 1975, 76, running, blowing oil, and all OEM stuff. We were doing body work, and this guy had a 1968 SS 396, and he was short, I think $500 on his bill. So we made a deal with him. He brings this original OEM Knucklehead. It was from Texas, had the Texas long steers on the front fender. Everything OEM. It's just, and he goes, well, that suffice to take care of the bill. We said, we didn't want it, I'll be honest with you, because everybody wanted electric stick pushed. So we made the deal with them, and we sold it for $800. So we made a lot of money.
This is the one I'm bringing to the show for Amatrad. It took me a long time to build that motor. I got it from Charlie, Competition Cycle, who doesn't sell shit. And somehow or other, I was able to get the motor off of him just on a conversation. And when I got it, it was just case halves. I wanted another flathead real bad because I loved the one that I had back when it was my first vintage bike. Was a 37 UH Flathead. Just kind of always wanted one, and they're understated, and nobody, it's funny, there's a lot of guys that don't even know what they are, and I kind of like that. So I got the motor, and then it was painstaking to find all the parts for it. I think they made 101 of these UH motors, which is a medium compression motor, but it's got real 13-fin cylinders on it, and ported cylinders, and then cast iron heads. I think they're 2-bar. Once I got the motor right, I put it in a 48 frame because they ran these bikes up to 48, and there was no way in hell I was paying for a 38 knuckle frame. I've always liked barred front ends. Most people think they're ugly, including everybody in this room. But me, I love them. I think they're dope. I went to Sweden by myself. Just took off a couple years ago, went out there to check it out, and met up with a guy named Relay. He's a sinner. He runs with those guys, and he took me to the Vard Hollow shop, and I got to meet Nick and John, and saw what they were doing in there, and I was just like, I gotta have one of these, and I'm gonna buy one from you guys. So I got home, and I was gonna put a Springer. Actually, the Springer that's on this Knucklehead was gonna go on this bike originally, and I bought that Vard from him, and quickly went on to the whole SJ, trying to figure out how to level a bike out with a Vard on it, and that the rake in the 48 frame kind of plays with everything, so I ended up having to go with a 19-inch rear tire and a 21 front just to get it to kind of look halfway decent. That bike, worn built for Scott Johnson, and I liked it. I want the motor out of it, but the more and more I see it, the more I'm probably going to leave it together for a while and ride it and just have fun with it. But eventually I'd like to take the motor out of it and put a cone shovel in it or something. Good friend of ours is absolutely in love with this bike, so I'm sure at some point in time I'll sell it to him with a cone in it and a different drivetrain. I feel as though I was peer pressured into this bike by Warren. I go over and hang out at the track with those guys and watch them all race. And Warren's pretty open and free with his bikes. He'll let anybody ride any bike he has. His death dealer Knucklehead, I've seen, I don't know, 6 different people drive that thing around and like keep it at their house. And I'm like, dude, that is the most amazing motorcycle ever. And he's like, yeah, I don't know, people just like driving it. So we're at the Slinger Speedway. It was me, Scott, Warren, and a couple other people, and we were watching some car races. And Warren kept, talking shit to me about why I don't come out and race with him. And I said, well, dude, I guess I'll do it one day, but I got to get a bike. And he goes, well, I'll sell you when I've got a WR. And that was it. I was like, okay, sounds good, man. So I bought this from Warren. This is my little pal, Lewis. I'm not going to try to say your last name again, dude. Say it.
Shieski.
That's his last name. Known him for, 5-6 years. I met you through your pops primarily. His parents do this really killer bike run.
So we find like a family in need with like their child, and we like throw this bike run for them, and we raise a bunch of money.
Yeah, usually it's a kid that has like childhood cancer or something to that effect. Me and the old man run up there on our Knuckleheads, and there's just all these people hanging out, and kind of standing around, hanging out and talking to people, and that's how I got to meet his dad. Got to become friends, and little Lewis here was just super stoked on the whole scene the whole time. I just wanted something to do with everything with a motor.
This bike here, it's funny how it came about. It actually came about at the first Mama Tried show. That bike was in. Carlos had his Knucklehead in the first Mama Tried show, and the guy looked at his bike, really liked it, and he ended up having parts and pieces for a Knucklehead, so he offered it to Carlos, and Carlos asked me if I wanted to get involved with the Knuckle, and I said, sure, let's go look at it. Well, all there was a couple of wheels, a frame, parts of a motor. So the hunt started for original parts, and a lot of original parts are hard to get. The guy had the rear fender was an OEM fender, and he had it painted. So what are you going to do? I can't make it look like a bobber. So I said, I'm going to do the restoration. But we put it together. We fished all the parts. These bags, I was lucky to go in. These are original Knucklehead bags that they used back in the day. I found them at Davenport. I walked in there, $400. The guy goes, this is sold. The windshield was custom made. Yeah, I mean everything in here. Yeah, I ordered it. We were fighting over this windshield, but I thought it looked pretty good on this restoration Knucklehead here. This thing runs like a top. I've had it all over the place. I remember blowing the head gaskets out in the first run. We had EL bolts on there instead of the FL bolts.
Pops, what was that critter's name that put that lower end together down in North Carolina? Spud?
Oh, no, yeah, it was Spud. Yeah, he's gone now.
Some tweaker named Spud put the lower end.
Put the lower end.
Rest in peace, Spud. He was something else, man. He was. When we were doing the deal, Tim Lynn from Show Class, I called him. I was like, hey, I'm sending this mortar down. This guy Spud, he's in your neck of the woods, dude. Is he legit? And he's like, we'll make sure it's legit. And I was like, all right, I at least need to hear some, some reaffirmation that at least this motor's gonna make it back home.
We geared it so I could do 70, and sometimes, you gotta remind yourself, shit, I'm on the interstate with a 1947 with mechanical brakes and a Springer front end, and I'm doing 70. Cruise is nice, but at my age, I like a windshield. I've been tough guy long enough, I gotta have a windshield. Yeah. Buckskin and black always looks classy, so the shifter, paid a lot of money for that, I remember, and this is a Harley Davidson shifter, so it sets off, the black and red themes, and these came out of Fox. He just died recently. He used to make these original lights out of glass, and just to specs, you can't tell from the original. Everybody wants a Speedo. If you look at the Speedo, this is an OEM Speedo right here. It's got 0 miles on it. So in other words, somebody had it on a shelf, and it's got the right patina from being on, on the shelf so long. And I'm going, what the hell? This can't have 0 miles on it. What's going on? So I took it to this guy here in Milwaukee, and not too many people know about him. He's a Speedo expert. He's over on 51st and Willard. So I took it to him, and he goes, hey, this ain't never been opened. And it was froze. And he goes, it's been sitting, well, 1947, you figure all these years. So it took him 2 weeks to loosen it up. He put it in, soaked it in, just the rear. He spun it, and it worked. And I'm like, man, I don't want to put any miles on it because an NOS Speedo, it's a 1 year only. I just put it in there, and I don't need it. I don't want to put the miles on it.
There's a Sportster back there that,
Back here?
yeah, that's real sentimental to me.
Oh, yep.
Can I do a
Yeah, absolutely.
thing on that?
Yeah.
Thanks. My name's Ashley Schaefer. This is my 1981 Toyota pickup truck. Took me a long time to get it to look the way it does right now. It's just a real work in progress. It's a passion. The desert color, I think it matches the floor in here really good. So it's kind of the way it went when it was speaking to me on how it wanted to be built. But I think I'm gonna mount the tank kind of just like this too. It's got a good look. It's got like a Japanese kind of flavor to it. You know what I mean? It's shit you don't see every day. And yeah, it just holds a dear spot in my heart.